Hello, everybody. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose. That's me. Thank you for joining me today. Give me just a little bit of your time. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you. So, before we jump into anything, and we do have a lot to talk about, I'm sure by now everyone's heard about Peyton Manning. We've heard about everybody's reactions to Peyton Manning. So we're going to get into that, obviously talk about that. Talk about UTC. They play Eastern Tennessee tonight, one of the biggest rivalries in Tennessee college basketball, and they do it with the Southern Conference title on the line and an opportunity to go to the big dance, the NCAA tournament. And I think UTC would be very, very deserving. Season record so far of 28-5. And this is their first time in the SoCon tournament since 2010, I believe. So, a lot to talk about today. But before we jump into all of that, let's talk about the platforms. Where can you find us and where can we reach you? Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. This Hot News Talk Radio isn't just a radio station. It's an interactive platform. You comment to us. We reply to you. Always, you look at our Facebook stats, we have a 100% reply rate. All right? We'd love to hear from you on any topic all the time. Okay? You report. You decide. We report. That's how it works. So you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you'd like to listen to us, you can find us on YouTube, as I mentioned before. All of our episodes, the classic episodes as well. We never call them old. And hotnewstalkradio.com, folks. Get over there. Just open up a tab. Hide us in the background. We don't mind. We don't mind being hidden, just so long as you hear us. And, of course, the TuneIn Radio app. On your mobile device in the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, Hot News Talk Radio. Search it. Give us a follow. Press play. You'll have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. And you get to listen to the David Tulis Show from 9 to 11, Binary with Russell Stroud from 11 to 12, The Herd with Colin Cowherd from 12 to 3, Sean Hannity, Clutch with Keon Rose, which you're listening to right now, and Mike Gallagher follows me after as well. So, around the clock, talk radio, many local shows. You have no excuses. You have none. None. I'm not saying that I won't forgive you if you don't follow these directions, but I'll be a little hurt. Over the weekend, in non-sporting news, First Lady Nancy Reagan passed away. She did a lot of things for this country. She defended her husband, Ronald Reagan, a lot, fierce defender of him. She's also one of the first ladies that she revolutionized what you see a first lady is doing in terms of starting social programs and being the face of several social programs. Hers was the Just Say No initiative, an anti-drug initiative. But I mean, you end up paving the way so that current First Lady Michelle Obama is able to do a lot of the things that she's doing to help our country as well. So just in terms of changing how the First Lady is seen, she's not the first one to do anything like that. Eleanor Roosevelt did as well, but she is one of the innovators of how big that became and using the popularity of being the First Lady to drive social change. She changed the game. And as we know, the big news of the day is another person who changed the game, Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning announced his retirement this morning. He was fighting back tears. If you watched that and didn't feel anything, I don't think you have a heart. It's very hard. It was very hard for me to watch anyway, because Peyton Manning's been my favorite quarterback his entire career. I've watched Peyton Manning since I was 8. So that one was hard to watch. If you want to find out if you have a soul or not, the soul test would be to watch that press conference. And if you feel nothing, I have very, very bad news for you. You might not have a heart. So there's that. But Peyton Manning deciding to hang it all up, and it's not incredibly shocking. I think you could see last season that he just didn't have enough left in the tank. I mean, the dude was injured. He had about 6 different injuries. Like, there's nothing that you could name on the human body that he didn't have injured at some point or another. The neck, the shoulder, his jaw, his foot. He had plantar fasciitis. I mean, just the list goes on and on and on and on. And I think the thing that surprised everybody the most was after he got benched, would he come back? He was benched for Brock Osweiler at some point in the season. We thought, well, maybe the ride might be done then. And then we get to the playoffs. Peyton plays pretty well in the playoffs, interestingly enough. And, you ride onto a Super Bowl, you get the opportunity for that happy ending. So I think many of us were surprised when Peyton started speculating about whether or not he would return to the league and try and be a quarterback again. And it looked like the decision kind of got made for him. There weren't a whole lot of teams offering Peyton a starting job. And there were going to be some teams that would, obviously. I think the Rams in a second would take old, broken Peyton Manning over Case Keenum, who they have. I think the Houston Texans would take old, broken Peyton Manning, especially because they have a very good defense, not unlike the Denver Broncos. They have a very good defense. J.J. Watt. I think they take old, broken Peyton Manning before they took Brian Hoyer, who they have. Like, they're just some teams with no quarterback that's just they'd be willing to do anything for even beat up Manning. But by and large, Peyton Manning's not going to come back to the league to go to the Rams. The Rams aren't ready to win a Super Bowl. Peyton Manning's not coming back to the league to go to some team that's in rebuilding mode or has more than a few steps to go. If he was going to come back, he was going to come back to a team that would give him another shot at playing in a Super Bowl, because when you reach Peyton's age, that's all that you want at this point. All you want is the legacy. It's not about anything else. And, I think the prevailing idea, the prevailing thought was, it was time for Peyton to hang it up. And I even agree. But I'm going to argue the opposite side of the spectrum here. I'm going to argue the opposite side. Just why would a person like Peyton Manning, whose body has been through so much physical harm, and who, the reports were that he couldn't even take his shoulder pads off without pain, why would a guy like that, clearly past his prime, want to come back to the National Football League? And I think that he gets the opportunity to choose. I think he gets the opportunity to choose. I think Kobe Bryant, who many people would also say you're old, you're hogging up space, the young guys can't get any development because you're here on the floor. I think even Kobe gets to choose. As long as they're willing to play and someone is willing to pay them to do it, I don't have a problem with guys staying in the league longer than they probably should. Because if you think that they can't play now, 10 years from now, they really, really can't play. They don't have that. They don't even have that as an option anymore. And you talk about how difficult life is after football for a lot of these guys, that you've been doing this your whole life. You played Pee Wee football, Pop Warner football. You played in middle school. You played in high school. You played in college. You played in the NFL. You're not halfway through your life at 39 years old, if you're Peyton Manning, but you're at the end of your football life. What do you do after that? Like, seriously, what do you do with yourself? And I think a lot of guys have trouble figuring out what to do when they're done playing football. Here is this thing that has come to define your entire existence. And if there's a chance, even a small percentage of a chance that you get to keep doing it, I think that those guys in their minds, they're like, I'm going to try. I mean, it may not look great, but this is what I'm good for. And if I don't do this, I don't know what I'm good for. And you even heard similar sentiments from Ronda Rousey, who by no means is past her prime, but when Holly Holm knocked her out, and we're going to talk about the UFC later, because that whole thing happened this weekend, just stuff happened, and you're just like, wow. But Ronda Rousey had similar sentiments of, she gets knocked out by Holly Holm. She's lying on the mat, looking up at the ceiling, going, if I don't have this, what am I good for? And I think a lot of athletes obsess over their sport and obsess over their craft. And are so strongly dedicated to what they're doing. When it's time to stop doing it, they don't know how. They don't know how to be anything else. And that's actually the job of some therapists around sports, that their job is to try and help athletes mentally transition their life from one phase, which is playing athletics, to the next phase of life. Because the next phase of life is the one that comes with all of the depression and all of the anxiety of, I don't have anything to do anymore. And if a guy wants to keep playing, if they're still even remotely physically able, I'm going to say let him play. Let him play. Not because it looks good, because it certainly doesn't. I think anybody watching Peyton Manning last season, we all know, doesn't look good. Not at times, downright ugly. The Kansas City game stands out to me. The 4-interception game from Peyton Manning, he has 4 interceptions. He just looked dreadful. He was limping. I mean, it was bad, and it was hard to watch as being a huge fan of his. It was difficult, and Sam Blevins, our NASCAR insider, I'm going to ask him about it on Wednesday, because he's the biggest Tennessee fan that I know. Just how he feels about this, because it does feel like it's about time. 18 years, broke about every record you could possibly break. He holds them all. He either is tied for all of them, has all of them outright, or is very nearly close to having all of them. Career records, single season records. Peyton Manning, over 500 touchdown passes thrown, 200 games won. And to think that there was a chance that the Indianapolis Colts could have drafted instead Ryan Leaf. There was actually a debate there. Conventional wisdom said take Peyton, but there was a small undercurrent of take Ryan Leaf. He's got a strong arm. He looks like he knows what he's doing. Boy, the Indianapolis Colts dodged a bullet there from being remembered as one of the all-time, dumbest and worst franchises, because they weren't good before they drafted Peyton. Can you imagine how much worse they would have been if they had drafted Ryan Leaf? You talk about what ifs in history that could have changed the entire course of the NFL. The Indianapolis Colts would be irrelevant. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose. That's me. I appreciate the fact that you're listening and that you're giving me just a little bit of your time. I was reading the Monday Morning Quarterback article. Peter King writes it every Monday, and it's one of my favorite columns to read on a weekly basis. Peter King, obviously, Sports Illustrated, very, very knowledgeable, and he was talking to Tom Brady. Tom Brady had a lot of great things to say about Peyton, and Peyton about Brady. Peyton in the press conference saying that he would miss the handshake with Tom Brady. That got me in the fields, because you watch the battles between the two of them. Rivalry is what separates sports from most things. It's what makes sports so exciting, and it's what makes us drawn to it and drawn to watching these games. When you have a good rivalry, when you have Manning Brady, when you have a Magic Bird, when you have those rivalries, okay, you just can't help it. Andre Agassi and Pete Sampras, Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon. When you have a great rivalry, oh my gosh. And we'll talk about it a little bit in the UFC too, because I think that's what the UFC is missing. The UFC has some great fighters, but they're missing a great rivalry, and that's part of their problem. But you have a great rivalry like that one. That is the epitome of what sports are about. And Peyton Manning is a guy that just, the details, he was so stuck on the details. I was listening earlier today to someone talking about Peyton Manning thinking about the things that most quarterbacks don't even think about. Someone asked him, you get to the line of scrimmage and you audible and you change the plays so much. Do you ever think about what would happen if you lost your voice? And Peyton was like, of course I know what would happen if I lost my voice. I have a series of drinks and teas that I will drink to help me get my voice back. Like, the man is thinking about what would happen if he ever lost his voice. I assure you, most of the NFL is not thinking about that. I can promise you that. Okay, and I understand that now it's the time. We talk about legacy all the time. It's the big thing in the sports world. Where do you rank? For us, it's not just enough to watch your career and appreciate it, because my goodness, how spoiled are we? We got to watch Brady and Manning, two of the best ever, go at it for the greater part of the last decade and a half. How lucky are we? We are so fortunate to have seen this. This is the stuff that your grandparents tell you about. You know, your parents are telling you about. My dad told me about watching Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. Okay? He got to see that. I didn't get to see that live. I only get to watch documentaries and YouTube clips. He actually got to watch it. I didn't get to see all of that. He told me about Reggie Miller and the Knicks. I was just a little kid. I don't remember it very well. He got to see it. I only get the documentary. I only get the 30 for 30. How lucky are we that we got to watch that? The two of the greatest ever battle. Tom Brady has the edge in overall matchups between the two. Peyton Manning has the edge in playoff matchups between the two, including one of the greatest comebacks in a conference championship game ever. And here we are watching these two guys and the admiration that they have for one another. Peyton Manning stuck on the details. Tom Brady stuck on the details. And you start to go, okay, where do these guys rank? Because it's not just enough to have seen that. As lucky and as fortunate as we have been, it's not just enough to have seen that rivalry. Where do these guys rank? You know I'm biased. Peyton Manning is my favorite quarterback ever. And I didn't grow up in Tennessee. I wasn't a Vols fan growing up. Doesn't matter. He's the most amazing quarterback I've ever seen. What he did to a defense to manipulate it before the play started, what Peyton Manning did with the no huddle was considered, before he came into the league, gimmicky. You no huddle to try and catch people off guard. Peyton Manning no huddled not just as something to do to catch people off guard. He no huddled as a rule. We're going to no huddle. We're going to decipher your defense before we snap the ball. And once we snap it, I've already gotten you beat. I know where the touchdown pass is. You have to figure me out. And that's part of it too, that a lot of the great defenders of all time, some of them, you know, were appreciative of the fact that they had to be on their best game to play Peyton Manning. And Peyton had to be on his to be able to beat a Ray Lewis and to be able to beat an Ed Reed, a Troy Polamalu, Brian Dawkins, others that he named in the press conference. I mean, this is the passing game in the NFL became something different. And where does he rank all time? For me, I'm not going to put him ahead of Montana. I didn't have the fortune of watching Montana, again, live. I only get documentaries and YouTube clips, and what I've seen is amazing. I don't get to decide, but just in my lifetime, it's Manning. If you give me a draft of all the quarterbacks that have been in the league since Manning entered the league, and I have to choose one, and I have the number one pick, I'm taking Manning every single time. I just am. He is that good to me. And when his arm strength was at its peak, and when his mind was at its peak, could anyone foreseeably beat that offense? They could beat you with so many people. He had games where he was hitting 11 different receivers in games. He made everybody around him better. That's how you become one of the greats. And it didn't just happen. It's the lesson of hard work that you learn from sports. It's one of the things that if you learn nothing else sitting on your butt watching football every Sunday, it's that the stuff that's happening out there didn't just happen overnight. And when Peyton Manning is being as precise as he's being, it didn't just happen overnight. That even for Peyton Manning to play poorly, the way his body was broken down, he shouldn't even have been as bad as he was. He could have been worse. Even for him to play poorly, it took countless hours watching film, countless hours practicing, countless hours in rehab to get the foot right, to get the back right, to get the arm right, to get the nerves right. Peyton Manning is the best quarterback I've ever seen play football in my life. Tom Brady's right there. Okay, I'm not taking anything away from Tom Brady, because sometimes I watch Tom Brady and I'm like, I don't know about where I stand on that. Like, I flip-flop all the time. But I'm not counting the championships. I'm just counting just the eye test, just what I have seen. Peyton all day, man. Peyton all day. You're listening to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. That's me. And we'll talk some UFC and basketball.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds. We'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
I'm going to Carter Shooting Supply.
Carter Shooting Supply.
That's right, Carter Shooting Supply. They're having a great sale on all of their guns right now, and it's name brands like Smith & Wesson, Ruger, Springfield, their AR-15s. They've got the hottest gun in the land right now, the Sky 9mm. Man, it comes in all the cool colors. If you're an Alabama fan, they've got crimson. If you're a big orange fan, they've got an orange one. You know, all the women are loving the pink one and Tiffany blue. Plus, it has a lifetime warranty replacement. If the gun is stolen, all you need is your police report or receipt, and they'll replace it free. It has a 60-day full money-back guarantee. That's Carter Shooting Supply. They're in Harrison right there at 6210 Highway 58.
Are they online?
Yes, they are. That's cartershootingsupply.com, or give them a call, 423-344-1099. Now, this sale's not going to last too long, so you need to hurry up and get there. And they do have a great indoor shooting facility. You can get your Tennessee handgun carry permit also. That's Carter Shooting Supply, 423-344-1099. You need a place for your party or maybe a wedding reception for 100 or even more. Maybe you'd like to host a small trade show for your business, and you need a very affordable venue. Are you looking for a place for your birthday gala or services to start up a church? Look no further than the Hidden Gem in Hickson. It's an overlooked, newly appointed reception hall right here in Hickson, Tennessee. Big space, small price. That's right, big space, small price. Call Mr. Chu and ask for a tour. 316-7388. That's 423-316-7388. He'll tell you a lot more about the venue. Rent this venue today. Just call 423-316-7388 and ask for Mr. Chu.
Expect fair skies to continue through the nighttime. Not as chilly overnight with some late fog lows into the mid and upper 40s. For Tuesday, some sunshine returning. A warm spring-like afternoon. Highs into the lower 70s. Continued warm and mainly dry through the midweek with highs by Wednesday near 75. This forecast is brought to you by Hamilton Medical Center in Dalton. Proud to be named #1 by CareChex for medical excellence and overall hospital care in the Northwest Georgia and Chattanooga region. And I'm Swarm Team 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
When the weather turns bad, turn to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. On the net, hotnewstalkradio.com. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. From the Hot News Talk Radio Weather Center. Chattanooga, we've got you covered. When the weather turns bad, the Tennessee Valley turns to Hot News Talk Radio.
Go, 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 go.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. 3 students from 3 schools arrested in 3 different incidents. A student from East Ridge High School was arrested on Friday after authorities say he assaulted a teacher and then threatened to get a gun and shoot several people at the school. In the second incident, the sheriff's office says that there was a note found on the floor of a hallway at Washington Alternative School making violent threats. 1 suspect was arrested. And in the third case, a note was discovered on a bathroom wall in the girls' restroom at Udoa High School, and the suspect has been arrested in that case as well. A second suspect has been arrested in the Ocoee Street shootout, which injured a 14-year-old boy on February the 21st. Gary Cross had multiple warrants out for his arrest. He was finally hunted down by the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office. He was booked on outstanding warrants at the Hamilton County Jail. The first suspect, Dominique Cal, had already been in custody for several weeks following the broad daylight gun battle. Senators Lamar Alexander and David Perdue took a moment today to remember the legacy of former First Lady Nancy Reagan, who passed away. She was 94. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot News Talk Radio.
Hot News Talk 1240.
So, part of sports, obviously, and we talk about this all the time, daily, in fact, it is the daily drum that I pound. Wild, aimless speculation. We know nothing, and yet we speculate. We just like to predict things for prediction's sake. We don't have any particular thought or reasons behind some of the things that we say. We have some reasons. I'm not going to say no, but we have some reasons, but we don't put nearly enough thought into the things that we're saying. And one of the things that makes me think about that is the UFC. UFC 196 was this past weekend. It had a pretty stacked card. Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz. Holly Holm versus Miesha Tate. McGregor was the favorite in his fight. Holly Holm, who has the had the championship belt, was the favorite in her fight versus Miesha Tate. Holly Holm, of course, knocked out Ronda Rousey. And you're looking at this, and you're like, okay, these guys are the favorites in their fight. The UFC is doing this thing that they always do. And then a lot of sports that are individual in nature always do. Sports that are individual in nature, you always try and find that next star, okay? Your golf, you want a Tiger Woods. Your NASCAR, you want a Dale Earnhardt. You just do. You want your Richard Petty. You want your Jeff Gordon, your Jimmy Johnson. You want your stars. You're the NBA, you want Michael Jordan. You want Steph Curry. And even and those are team sports, okay? If you look at the NFL puts the onus on the quarterback. You want your star quarterback. Obviously, all of the love that Peyton Manning is getting as he retires today is the result of you want your stars. And as much as we whine and complain about parity and how much we want everybody to have an opportunity to win, the thing that sells tickets a lot of times is when somebody runs away and becomes a star. Because all this is proving in the UFC that Conor McGregor is losing and that Holly Holm is losing and that even Ronda Rousey, when she lost, all this is proving is that there's parity in the sport, that everybody's got an opportunity to win depending on the matchups. But when we sit down and talk about it, that's not what we really want. We don't want parity. We want Ronda Rousey to keep winning and winning and winning, because the moment she loses and the moment Conor McGregor loses and the moment that Holly Holm loses, what is our reaction? The UFC's done. They have no more stars. Just finished. Which is insane to me for just a litany of reasons. One, Conor McGregor, I think, is helped by the fact that when he fought Nate Diaz, he had to go up in weight to fight a much larger man. Weight classes exist for a reason. If somebody is much larger than you and you have to pack on weight to reach their size, you lose your natural advantage of speed. You're still smaller. You just have so many disadvantages that logistically we all are aware of. If Conor were fighting in his own weight division and he lost, this loss carries much more, weight. It's a lot more impact in this loss. This loss doesn't have nearly as much because he was fighting a guy who was enormous. Basically, the UFC was like, just try and be in the 160 range. Try. And I don't even know if he was there. Okay. So you have that. And then the other thing is Conor McGregor is a talker. People who are talkers talk themselves into relevance. Conor McGregor will be back talking again. He will be talking about somebody else. He will be talking and talking and talking and running his mouth. And I remember, though, there was a conversation about whether Conor McGregor was going to be able to fight somebody else in that weight division that he went up to go fight, Robbie Lawler. And I don't think anybody imagined that he would lose this fight to Nate Diaz, but now that he's lost it, any fight against Robbie Lawler, who is just a large punching machine, that we can just go ahead and kiss that fight goodbye. Robbie Lawler is not fighting Conor McGregor. And if he did, I think we now know what would happen. It would be the Mack truck that is a Robbie Lawler punch would connect with Conor McGregor's face, and that could be good night. All right, that's a big dude. So you go back down to your division, your natural weight division. Conor McGregor's probably not losing any more fights there for a while. His fans and his fame will return. Holly Holm, Ronda Rousey, and Miesha Tate, or as I like to call it, a human game of rock, paper, scissors, in which Ronda Rousey dominates Miesha Tate. Miesha Tate beats Holly Holm, and Holly Holm knocks out Ronda Rousey. It's which one do you want? Because now Miesha Tate's got the belt, and Ronda Rousey's beaten Miesha 3 times now. Like it's getting comical. Not just the amount of times that Ronda has beaten Miesha Tate, but how quickly in the amount of times. It's like it's not been fights that have gone the distance with the two of them. Just Miesha Tate is the most qualified to fight Ronda Rousey, and Ronda Rousey lays her out time and time again. She's like Wile E. Coyote trying to catch the Roadrunner. It's just never going to happen. And now you've got the target on yourself because you've got the belt, and Ronda Rousey wants to fight somebody when she comes back. And I think that she's been such a good fighter for the league for so long, you've got to give her the championship fight. And I think everybody wants to see her fight Holly. So again, the catastrophizing that everyone's been doing is, oh, we wanted to see her fight Holly, and Holly has now lost the fight as her star was beginning to ascend. She's now lost the fight. Who should Ronda Rousey fight? Well, obviously Miesha Tate. Like this whole thing that the UFC is just now bereft of stars, and where will they look for attention now that their champions have lost? Have you ever listened to UFC trash talkers? Have you heard of a man named Chael Sonnen? Chael Sonnen lost a lot of fights, but because he was a talker, because he talked and he talked and he talked and he talked, he talked himself into fights he had no business being in. He talked himself into 2 Anderson Silva fights. 2. And you could argue he didn't even have the resume to really be there. Just was not capable of throwing punches hard enough to hurt Anderson Silva. When he actually got the fight, we don't know why and how there was even a second one. Chael Sonnen talked his way there. Conor McGregor is not just a loudmouth. He's very calculated. The things that he says that sound crazy and the crazy stuff that he says, these things are calculated to draw in crowds. He'll be back. And he's good enough. He's a good enough fighter at his division that there's nothing to worry about. Okay? He's going to be all right. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose. Make sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. You can check out our classic episodes on YouTube. We never call them old. And hotnewstalkradio.com is where you can stream the show live, whether or not you're at work, whether or not you're at home, just dinking around on the internet. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. We just like to have us on in the background. You know, we just love to be around. It's all good. And of course, if you want to listen to us on your mobile device, check us out in the Google Play Store and the Apple Store. Give us a follow, press play, and you will have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. So I want to take a little bit of a second here to talk about UTC, both the men and the women's basketball team. UTC last night played Samford. The women did. They played Samford, and they were able to get that victory and win the SoCon tournament to make the NCAA women's tournament, which is going to be very exciting. I think that they've got an opportunity to go far. This is a very deep and skilled bunch of women. I'm excited about this team's chances to go deep into the tournament. So I'm excited for them, and I'm excited for the men, because the men's tournament is a little bit deeper. Women's college basketball is notoriously not as deep. Men's tournament is deeper, and it's harder to get into that tournament. So the UTC men have an opportunity. Punch your ticket tonight. Win your conference tourney, and you're in. You don't have to worry about the selection committee. You're sitting down sweating bullets wondering, what are we going to do? Can we get in? Don't have to worry about a thing. Win the conference tourney, and you're in. They play Eastern Tennessee tonight. It's on ESPN, I believe, at 7:30. Check it out. Okay, we're gonna be on ESPN. people. It's going to be amazing. ETSU. And this is a rivalry here. We have added just one more game to this rivalry. These schools don't like each other. There's no doubt about that one. And I hope UTC can make it into the tournament. I think if they do, they land at around a 14, 13, or 12 seed, somewhere in that ballpark. So much precedent. I actually like them at the 14 seed because I was looking at the number of times that 14 seeds have beaten 3 seeds. I like that. I'm a huge fan of what that is. Here it is. I mean, I'm calling for the I like that. Nope.
You like that? You like that?
I do like that, Kirk Cousins. You have no idea. You have no idea. I do like that. UTC in the NCAA tournament. I just like the way that sounds. And this time, unlike the last time that the Mocs made the tournament and didn't get very far, they have an opportunity this time. I don't know to go deep, but you never know. And this is obviously because of how this works. This is obviously going to influence how I fill out my bracket. And this is the problem with me and filling out brackets, is that I am biased to just the nth degree in my brackets. Like I'll never pick Kansas. I hate them. I will never pick them. I picked Kansas once in an NCAA tournament when a long time ago. And this tells you how petty I am about this. And just, I guess in general, just my general pettiness. I picked Kansas in the tournament to win the tournament in 2005. They get upset in the first round by the Bucknell Bison. I can't name anybody on that team. I couldn't point Bucknell out to you on a map. Bucknell Bison come in, beat the Kansas Jayhawks, shatter my bracket day 1 of the tournament. I haven't picked Kansas in 11 years. And I say 11 years because I won't be picking them again this year. I will never pick Kansas to win a title. Even if Kansas were to somehow go deep into the tournament and win a title, I would still never pick Kansas. They're poison, okay? That's my bracket advice to you. Avoid Kansas. When I go through my bracket tips after Selection Sunday right around the corner, when I go through my bracket tips, one of those tips is going to be, here's a preview, spoiler alert, don't pick Kansas. And I'm dead serious. Don't do it. Don't do it. I warned you, okay? They're poison. Any team that would just lose to the Bucknell Bison, and as long as Bill Self coaches there, never pick them. Just don't do it. That's one of the greatest upsets I've ever seen in my life, and I couldn't appreciate it because I was on the wrong end of that. I was on the very wrong end of that. Bracket Buster week day 1. Oh, that's the only time that's ever happened to me. The only time. This is AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. Peyton Manning announced his retirement this morning, choking back the tears. He thanked the state of Louisiana for being his hometown, Knoxville, Vols fans everywhere for supporting him while he was at UT. He thanked the Indianapolis Colts, the city, the fans, the organization, Jim Irsay, all of the coaches that he had there, from Jim Caldwell to Tony Dungy. And he thanked the Denver Broncos organization, offensive coordinator at the time, offensive coordinator Adam Gase, Gary Kubiak, who's become his friend in this past season, John Fox. I mean, just he thanked everybody. It was amazing. He effectively and very efficiently thanked everyone. Okay, if only you could get Oscar winners to do that, to thank everyone the way he thanked everyone. He thanked everyone for 18 years worth of stuff. Okay, and he did it in 11 minutes. So efficient. So efficient. Peyton Manning, efficient all the way to the end. And that felt like a eulogy, man. Like it had me choked up at points, okay? Part of it is I am a sappy person, especially when it comes to sports. Sappy sports stories get me, especially the real ones. Like I told you before, I've been watching Peyton Manning since I was 8 years old. I remember I used to get the Highlights for Kids magazine, like a little kids magazine that just had like different stories about stuff. And there was one that had an interview with Peyton Manning. I kept that magazine for 9 years. I don't know where it is now because we moved. But, man, I held on to that thing forever. It's Peyton Manning giving advice on how to throw a football in Highlights for Kids. I never forgot it. Okay? I still try and throw a football the way that I learned it in that magazine. when I play pickup games and stuff with friends. Dude's had an impact on my life, taught me the importance and the value of hard work and being meticulous when you have a job to do. I learned a lot from Peyton Manning. And I honestly think that's part of the reason why I'm here. So, boy, if it doesn't get to you, no heart. You haven't got one. Sorry. Speaking of the upsets, I was talking about Bucknell and the UFC and other upsets. Another upset happened this weekend. The Los Angeles Lakers beat the Golden State Warriors very handily over the weekend. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, a combined 1 of 18 from 3, which is without a doubt the worst shooting night that they've had this season. It's not even close. Okay, Steph Curry had a lot of uncharacteristically bad plays, turnovers, just passes that didn't make any sense. It just wasn't a great day for them. And you're not going to have a ton of great games. And it's funny because, like, watching the Warriors, the thing that your body has trained you to do from watching the Warriors is that they're down 20. There's 5 minutes left to go in the fourth, and there was still some part of my mind that was like, I have to keep watching this game because there's no guarantee that it's over yet. They can make up 20 points like that. There is no team on earth that can make up 20 points faster than them. That's what they've trained my mind to do while watching them. I have to watch the whole game. They can make up 20 points in 5 minutes. I've seen it. We have all seen it. When they played the Pelicans last year, they did it twice. Once in the regular season and once in the playoffs. They made up 20 points like it wasn't anything at all. The Golden State Warriors lost that game. They just didn't play a good game. They didn't play their usual game. Give a lot of credit to the Los Angeles Lakers for having a great game plan against them as well. So, I mean, they got lucky in that the Warriors weren't shooting well, because you're not going to, look, you're a jump shooting team. You're not going to shoot well every night. It's just not going to happen on a nightly basis. You will mostly shoot well, especially when you shoot like Steph Curry. That is a freakish ability. You're going to shoot well most of the time, but you're going to have bad nights. It just happens to everyone. It happened to him in the finals last year, and they still won the title. Okay, so like, no reason to hit the panic button yet, but they are in a scary situation where they need to come back out, show some resolve, show some grit. And again, this loss might do them some good. It might put a little fire under them to keep them moving forward, because you don't want to have the incredible season that you're having and lose your number one spot to the San Antonio Spurs, who are only 3 games behind you, quietly 3 games behind you, because nobody pays attention to the Spurs until you're like, oh, shoot, they're here. How do they get to number 1? You just nobody pays attention to the Spurs until they get to the finals, and you're like, oh, yeah, that team's really good too. Because we do this, there's a sample size problem, which is that we have bad games and we just let the bad game define everything. The Warriors have a bad game yesterday, and storylines just start coming out like, are the Warriors lax? Are they taking their foot off the gas? Have they forgotten that their goal is to try and win 73 games? No, they haven't forgotten. Are you serious? These guys play all the time, night in and night out, as hard as they can. You just have bad games sometimes. And the Warriors beat the Spurs by 20. And we wanted that game to be so good and so close. But the Spurs are a really good basketball team too. The Spurs have just as much of an opportunity to break this record that the Warriors are trying to break as the Warriors do. I'm not saying we could have 2 teams break the record, but it is statistically right now in play. It's very much possible. And what we want to do is dismiss the Spurs because the Warriors beat them by 20, but the Warriors have been victim this past weekend to the greatest upset in the history of regular season basketball. The team with the highest winning percentage in the league, because their winning percentage is 95.1%, losing to a team with one of the worst in the league. The Lakers, won 11% of their games. 11. And that's a very huge upset. And they got a great game out of like Nick Young. This is how you know that this is part luck. A little bit, right? They got some great games out of Julius Randle and Jordan Clarkson and D'Angelo Russell. They're young guys that are up and coming. They got a decent, 12-point game out of Kobe. But they got a good game out of Nick Young. And Nick Young is terrible. This is when you have shots falling. Like Brandon Bass came out to ball in that game. There's nothing you can do when Nick Young and Brandon Bass start popping off, okay? Just Huertas was running point for the Lakers. I didn't realize that Huertas was still in the league. When he's doing what he was doing to the Warriors yesterday, you know what? Sometimes it's just time to concede. That's just not your night. The Warriors are still the best team in basketball by a very, very large margin. I would say that it's not even close, but I think the Spurs actually are quite close. But that's about it. It's those two teams. If the Spurs beat the Warriors in the playoffs, that's who's winning the finals. If the Warriors beat the Spurs, that's who's winning the finals. I think the Cavs are going to be in the NBA finals. It's not news. It's not rocket science there. But I think that they're still not on par with the best teams in the Western Conference. I'd really love to see a Thunder Cavaliers final because that matchup would be better. The two teams play closer to our conventional, normal idea of what basketball looks like. I really, really enjoy that. I think that would be a very entertaining finals because if the Spurs and the Warriors make it, that's not going to be an entertaining finals. It's almost assuredly going to be something in the ballpark of a sweep. If not 4 games, 5. Because the way those teams play a team concept, space the floor incredibly well, shoot the ball from distance, and have one superstar each that can just tear you to pieces. Spurs with Kawhi Leonard, Warriors with Steph Curry. You know what? You have LeBron James, but you don't have the rest of the team, man. I have trouble picking against the Western Conference. Like, it is so much more lopsided. Like, the Cavs are just not as well designed as the Warriors and Spurs are. And the Thunder just drafted really well and got 2 of the best 5 players in the game on their team. So the Thunder can play however they want. You're listening to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio Clutch with Keon Rose. The weekend was crazy. Just so many things happened. Like, we found out that Peyton Manning was retiring Sunday, officially announced his retirement in a press conference this morning. It was a tearful goodbye, and we're going to miss Peyton Manning. And I know I am, and I'm weirded out by this, okay? I'm weirded out by an NBA season next year that's not going to have Kobe Bryant in it. I'm weirded out by an NFL season next year that's not going to have Peyton in it. I don't know what that's going to look like. We're never going to see Brady Manning ever again. It was the last tango, as the Sports Illustrated magazine had on their cover before the two played in the AFC Championship game again this past year. That was it. And we got a brilliant show. We got a brilliant show from the two of them, and it's going to be weird watching a league without him. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio Clutch with Keon Rose. That's me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for giving me just a little piece of your time. Make sure that you check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Download us on the TuneIn Radio app. Search Hot News Talk Radio. Give us a follow and press play. You'll have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. Remember, it's not how you start. It's how you finish. Stay clutch. I'll see you in 24 hours, and make sure you check out UTC versus ETSU tonight on ESPN.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds. We'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, I'm Sabrina with Sabrina Realty Associates. Now is a great time to sell your home. In our area, inventory is at an all-time low, which translates in